Saturday. And it's unlike that market. As at the time I got there, I had to be so quiet and silent. And I had to start asking questions. Of course, I know what was happening. Currency shortage, ATM points, queues, long queues and all of that. And I just started asking a few traders in the market, and they were like, oh, Madam Nancy, you know what is happening, you know, a lot of people were complaining and all of that. The Central Bank of Nigeria has come forward to say, in fact, the Central Bank governor on Friday last week did say that they are putting a whole lot of plans in place. They are aggressively going after the banks too, and also monitoring the currency in circulation by banks. I'm also aware that many banks, and I'm calling out the banks this morning because they're also culprits of what's been happening. What I don't understand, especially from the videos that I have seen and from people giving me personal accounts, is how can banks be saboteurs of what is happening right now? The Central Bank of Nigeria gives you new notes and you are selling it. It's now a racketeering system. You're selling it to POS agents or whosoever, and they come back to Nigerians and sell it at exorbitant prices. So if you want to get a 10,000 Naira, I was told you'll be getting you'll be paying 3,000 or 2,000 to get 10,000. To get 10,000 Naira. What was before 100 Naira for, I think it was 100 Naira for every 1,000 or 100 Naira for every 10,000. Yes. So why is it that way right now? Why are we making things difficult for ourselves? But I must also say that the Central Bank of Nigeria has a lot to do in terms of ensuring that this system, that they get rid of this racketeering in the system, and they should do that perhaps with the police. I saw the statement last week from the Central Bank of Nigeria. They are going ahead with the police, the EFCC, as well as the ICPC. But the Central Bank of Nigeria should also ensure that there's enough currency to be circulated across the country. I think I would also urge the CBN to call out the banks. In fact, even though you are not calling them out, Nigerians are helping you call them out. I also saw that in some states in Nigeria right now, where the CBN has sent their directors or deputy directors, assistant directors, you see that some of the banks hoard the new Naira notes. For what exactly? I do not know. For what exactly? Making things difficult for people. But the box also rests at the Central Bank of Nigeria's table at this time to make sure that this situation abates. Because elections are just close by. We know a lot of people will want to, buy stocks, when I mean stocks, things you need in your house, to buy supplies and all of that, to ensure that currency is circulating in the system. When I went to the market on Saturday, my God, it was almost like a graveyard. In fact, some stores were shut down. Some stores really closed. I spoke to some POS agents. They were not dispensing. They were not even doing anything. So if you want to do a transfer, in the last 4 or 5 days, I couldn't even do a transaction. I had to go to another bank app, and it took me hours to get that done. So the infrastructure, the internet connectivity and all of that, I was just thinking, is it because of the pressure? The bank's infrastructure are also breaking down, but the onus still rests at the table of the Central Bank of Nigeria right now to make sure that this condition does not worsen. The Central Bank of Nigeria's Governor, Godwin Emefiele, did assure Nigerians on Friday. He also made the assurance when he met with the House of Representatives last week. Let's see how that goes. But it's really a difficult one out there. But I would also want to appeal for calm. At this point in time, we shouldn't, start beating ourselves up at the ATM points and all the videos I've been seeing. Let's just try to be a bit more patient while I'm calling on the authorities today to do the needful. But the question is, where are we going to? The cashless economy has come to stay. Whether we like it or not in Nigeria, we must follow the rest of the world, I know. They'll be like, oh, the rural people, and the politicians are already saying, oh, rural population, vulnerable Nigerians. And I'm just thinking, like I said, hold it, guys, hold the politicians. Are you really speaking for the rural people or vulnerable? You are talking for yourselves. And let me explain. Why are you speaking at this point? Is it because it's going to affect you and your elections come February 25 of March 11? When there are other social issues, do you come out like this to speak? Come on. So if you want to defend yourselves and just leave the rest of us. Let us struggle with our problems. And not now you are making it look as if you have intentions in your heart. Come on. Even if some people don't know, you can't deceive someone like me, of course. But the thing is, Nigeria really needs, if you take a look at the payment system in Nigeria, I would say the data has it there. I'm not the spokesperson of anyone. For me on this show, I try to be as objective, as truthful as possible. Nigeria payment system is quite advanced than even some other developed countries, but the buck still stops at the table of the Central Bank of Nigeria and the whole financial system to get this done and for us to pass through the storm. So with that being said, I will be looking at today on the show. My guest will be joining me shortly for us to take a look at this Naira shortage, for us to take a look at the CBN domestic card scheme, because the domestic card scheme was launched by the Central Bank of Nigeria, NIBS, and other financial stakeholders just a few days ago. But I must tell you that the furore of this currency shortage and the new Naira design has overtaken that. Some people don't even know what happened a few days ago. How does this play out with this that we are actually seeing? The impact of what we're facing right now on the larger payment system. That is what I'll be discussing in a few seconds with my guest, Omoni Kolade, who is the Chief Executive Officer at Sebrit. He will be joining me after this break. Do join us again. Don't forget that you can join the conversation. You can get your voices heard. All you need to do is to follow us on all our social media platforms. You can tweet at me right now, Moneyline TV, there you see, as well as Nancy Lo-Naji. You can find me on Twitter and send me what you think. What are your frustrations really about what we're seeing right now? Let's quickly take this break, and when we come back, my guest will be joining me for this extensive conversation, even beyond the Naira shortage. Let's really look for and see where we are going to. Are we doing it? Are we on the right path? And where do we intend to be? All that will be after the break. To join us again.
The truth untold. We restored democracy. We initiated due process. We created the EFCC and ICPC. We brought Nigeria out of debt by achieving $18 billion worth of relief and $30 billion overall reduction. We revived the rail system. We upgraded agriculture. We brought in the mobile phone and digitalized Nigeria. Under the PDP, the Nigerian economy was the strongest in Africa. Though Nigerians made their choice, today we all know better. Nigerians, do not despair. Hope is in the horizon. We are putting in the work and refreshing our drive to rescue and rebuild Nigeria. Together, let's make it happen. PDP. Power to the people.
Here is a new and refreshing offer for our esteemed audience across the globe. The new AIT Cloud TV is an online streaming service that offers you attractive opportunities to view our rich, exciting, and entertaining programs anytime, anywhere. AIT Cloud TV is available on the web on www.ait.app, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Android TV. You can also download the mobile app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Simply connect to the internet, download the app, register, and watch live or catch up on unlimited hours of exciting shows. AIT Cloud TV. TV on the go.
All right, welcome back to the program. My guest is still with me right here, Omoni Okolade, the Chief Executive Officer at Sebit. Did I say he's still with me or he joins me now? He joins me virtually from Lagos, the commercial nerve center of the country. Hello, Omoni, and welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you, Nasi? And thanks for having me on the program.
Fine, I'm good. Welcome to the show. Now, let's get started. Nee, tell me about your experience concerning this Naira shortage. What has been your experience over there, your personal experience, and Lagos experience? Just share a bit with me.
Funny, because we find ourselves in the fintech space, which we are one of the PSSP in the market. We are somehow digitalized in how we actually transact today. As a business, and me as an individual, I've been actually using electronics solutions today. So I've not really actually had the chance to really engage for assessing for cash for now, because our interactions has been much more digital. And I think from the digital aspect of things, right, for some of the solutions we have been using, I can say some actually we were seeing some level of stability in some way. Some I don't know how much improvement as actually we'll be able to ascertain between last week and this week yet.
What do you think about the notion? Of course, I also share the same view with you. If I really do not need cash, I don't handle cash really, because it's been for me electronic payment apart, except when, of course, there is the issue about infrastructure challenges and all of that, and we'll come back to that in a bit. But what do you think about the notion about for those that are unbanked and are rural, that do not have that opportunity to do electronic transactions, what do you think would be their fate right now concerning what we're saying about the new Naira?
No, I think looking at it from the initiative itself, right? I think at some point, some of this initiative has come to the market. Either look at it either now or later, right? And I think those the targeted market you discussed, which is the financial unincluded. I think this is actually the best opportunity to see how we can actually improve on what it is in the market, because the whole idea of being able to create inclusion actually is actually to upskill as every individual you want just in the marketplace, and also see how you can actually find the common enemy, which is cash itself, because there's limit to what cash can do, right? Digital allows everybody to scale, either as a business or as individual today. So for financial inclusion, I feel that there has to be like a more related touch point for them, like things like agency banking, which already exists today, right? But we don't really work on agency banking, so we don't know how far this kind of association or relationship actually can be built. But I know there's, based on the limits, the withdrawal limit per day, I feel there should still be some privilege of what some of the agency banks should be able to actually give out today. But I don't know the size of what it is that they have to actually cater for the demand that is required out there. So I think this kind of direction is to actually help us get to where we need to be as a country, right? And also making sure that nobody is left behind, just like you said, the financial excluded, but making sure that we have all their systems built just quickly to see how every area of the markets can actually be able to be attended to as it should be.
Do you really think that Nigeria can get to the level whereby we are really cashless? When I mean cashless, that means, very little cash is being handled. That's very little paper money circulates, and a lot more people would begin to do electronic transactions with their phones, QR codes, and all of that. Do you think we can get to that level in this country? Because when, like, for example, the CBN has talked about this, they started the cashless policy in 2012, for example. A lot of people were like, I remember even when the ATM came up, we're like, oh no, Nigerians will not use ATM, all of that. So do you think that with all of this happening, that we can really get to the stage whereby people don't carry paper money as much as they should, or yes, as much as they should?
Yeah, I think we can, but we have to look at it. What are the factors required to get to this position, right? And who are the drivers or who are the stakeholders that requires to help us get to this position? And if you look at it, it is what I think. If you look at it from the CBN point of view, those are the reasons behind some of the initiatives you've seen over the time, right? Looking at it even from the point of introducing the recent local card initiative, right? All those initiatives actually is also to actually give, because you cannot say you want to drive like a cashless environment, and the capability or infrastructure required to achieve this, are still quite expensive, or it's still quite expensive to adopt some of those solutions, right? Or even some solutions that will actually require you to drive some solutions around social impacts, to the excluded in the financial space. If you consider some of the existing solutions today and what is needed to drive those initiatives, realize that there's still huge gaps, and those gaps require to be covered, right? So I believe we can get there, but the way we have, I think, it's a growing stage, right? But there's so much that needs to be worked on when it comes to infrastructure capability, and when it comes to driving more initiatives, right? And also, I think there has to be another key areas when it comes to collaboration, right? And collaboration means that from the policy-wise to also some of the stakeholders within the policy value chain, right? And then other stakeholders to see how individual comes together, right? And see how we can actually start addressing those key areas or these areas that are lacking. Because if you look at the ratio of the total population of the country as a whole, right? We need to start looking at the way where we can map out solution infrastructure and size them between a certain radius of people within the entire community. And those are where initiatives like agency banking are supposed to take banking closer to people in some ways, right? But I feel it's a journey, and I feel we can attain it. And I feel that there are so much work that needs to be done. And more collaboration that needs to work, but yes, we can.
What would be your advice to the Central Bank of Nigeria right now as to how all this issue about the new Naira circulation is being handled? At least you are also in the payment space and all of that. What will really be your advice at this time? Let me also situate it around the Central Bank governor did, the CBN last week did come out to say, okay, that banks can now pay over the counter 20,000 Naira to an individual, like when everyone was told to go to the ATMs in a bid to ameliorate the situation. So what will really be your advice as to the handling of this current situation?
I think I believe that if there can be more when it comes to market orientations about what exists today in the market. What do I mean by that? Today, if you look at the initiative with what they call the Naira today, right? How much can we take advantage of Naira now, where an individual can easily just set up and get an Naira, which is almost equivalent to the Naira is supposed to have, right? But and how can we streamline those Naira to our daily activity today, right? Where you have where somebody has to get into the bus to pay for transportation, somebody needs to actually be able to pay for food or buy something in the market, right? How do we make sure that we can actually easily push some of those initiatives? How easy it is for us to drive those initiatives into the daily life of activity in the market today?
How do you think we can do that really? Because the central bank and other financial stakeholders have been trying to do this over the last few years. What are other things that you think they can do? Because it seems it's penetrating, but I believe that they will want it to penetrate as fast as possible. Do you think that they also need to carry Nigerians more along than what they are doing right now in terms of these policies and these initiatives?
Yeah, I think from the CBN point of view, I can see that there's so much that has been done even before this was pushed into the market, right? But I feel that there has to be more going on and more has to be done. Like I said, collaboration is always something that you must always consider most of the time, and I think those collaborations are going on differently, yes, right? But I feel that there are areas that which maybe there has to be much more partnerships, right? Where we have to look at the factor of where are the key of this market that is demanding or that has the high appetite for this kind of cash, right? And what are the focus for those kind of areas? Because you realize that there are key areas of the market that actually are driving for this appetite for cash, right? And how they can use this to actually transact today, which we know that is the lifeblood of commerce today, right? And everybody has to engage. So how do we actually be able to look at it from that point of view and see how we can form more collaborations to drive seamless engagements in the market today?
Niyi, what do you think is the larger impact of this Naira shortage on the economy? At least, what have been your own, what's your reading of the impact, at least in the last few days, on the larger economy?
For impact, I won't be able to say now because impact is something that you have to look at over the time, right? And then that's just something that would just commence, right? But I feel that there's just some few gaps, right? I feel there's some just few gaps today that needs to be covered when it comes to the availability. But I think if those availabilities are addressed, I think it goes back to what the cash needed for in the economy. As much as those cash has to be available, right? Once they are available, I think it's like I said, it's the key driver is a key driver for seamless transaction for some certain people in the market. So as much as we want to look at it, we're looking at it from the impact of say how easy can people get cash to actually keep driving their daily activity, right? So I cannot foresee any key impact now as well. Over the time, maybe in the next few weeks, we'll be able to say, okay, this was the outcome of what has happened over the last few days in the market as well.
Okay, Niyi, let's talk about earlier on during my introduction, I did say that the Central Bank of Nigeria, in the midst of all of this, the deadline, the extension of the new Naira notes and all of that, launched what it called the CBN's domestic card scheme known as Afrigo. I don't know how many Nigerians, of course, those of us monitoring the space, know about it. But I don't know how many Nigerians that have even heard about it or even following what the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing on that. Can you just briefly explain basically what the Afrigo card means, the local card scheme as launched by the CBN and the Nigeria Interbank Settlement System, NIBS, as well as the other financial system players? What is that card? What does that card mean?
Okay, I think it's initiatives like that, actually, like I said, right, an initiative to actually help upskill the market itself, right, and address some key areas of need today. Looking at the card is more like having a card solution that is available for you locally, right, and the transactions are actually being processed locally. That means in the value chain of payment, right, every entity or the process of those payments have been actually let me say, it's a process where everything is actually being processed locally, right? And looking at it also from the cost point of view, right? It means that there's a cost element today in the market today. Every day, if you look at the ratio of local cards as against international cards today, you realize that the higher percentage is actually local as against the international today. And if you look at the value chain of what the payment of cards looks at today, you realize that some of your costs today are actually hedged against FX, right? And then your revenue actually is actually in local itself. You understand? So you cannot actually be benchmarking on cost, which is hedging against FX, and your revenue is actually being actually returned as local. So you're already actually fighting a marginal revenue in that point. Your revenue are becoming thinner, right? You also actually, or every time, having what they call unstabilized your start cost, because some of the elements that you're using to define issuing of those cards that customers can use and transact with it, right, is already hedging against FX. So at every point in time, you are basing your local activity and there is hedging against FX. And I don't think that actually could be good, because at the end of the day, when we talk about financial inclusion and then looking at how you can use some of these solutions to drive financial inclusion and social impact, you cannot actually be using FX to determine solutions that you think can be cheaper, to push innovations across some verticals that you're looking at. So looking at it from the point of cost stabilization, I think you see that it's a very strong initiative, right, to actually help drive some key needs in the market as a whole.
What then happens to the cards that are already existing by, let me just call their name so that our viewers can understand what I'm saying, the VEVs, the Visas, the MasterCards and all of that? What this domestic card means is that the Afrigo card, if you want, replaces that. Though the central bank governor did say at the launch that it could go side by side, but what it means right now is that with the domestic card, with the local card, with the Afrigo, the cost will be in Naira, just like what you said, in terms of hedging against FX risk.
So I think looking at the market, right, and just like when we're looking at the scarcity of Naira discussion, right, you realize that you need so much to actually attain some kind of success when it comes to the infrastructure in the market, right? Or you need more entity or more innovations to drive the kind of agenda you want to achieve in the market. So I think it's also like, let's say, this kind of initiatives that can add on to the market itself, right? It doesn't really stop or affect the existing player in the market, right? Because if you look at every businesses or initiatives, actually individual has his own direction and vision on how you stand, the purpose of why you stand, they're actually offering their service in the market. So looking at it, let's look at it from how do we keep bringing in new initiatives to add on, right, to drive more inclusions and give more reliability or give more options or varieties in the market, you understand? So it's more about the game of, you understand, are there more varieties to actually give people the options, you understand, to be able to look at things in different forms when it comes to cost stabilization in this kind of space, or looking at you hedging against some of your costs against FX, or looking at it when it comes to revenue margin that is becoming thinner, or when it comes to looking at it from the point of, let me say, driving some, you understand, social impacts in some areas. So I think it's always like a welcome idea to actually look at inclusion, right? Not really actually looking at it as an impact to other players that exist in the market.
let's take a look at how this AfriGo, when as we go on to see the larger implementation of AfriGo, how do you see it? How will you compare it to countries that are also on the path of this domestic card scheme? China, for example, with the Union Pay. I think India also, Rupee is the domestic card of India. I think that was done in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. How do you see the journey of AfriGo with countries like China, India, Turkey? Turkey has its own too. I think they call it Terra also. And Russia also has its own domestic card. So what kind of journey?
Japan,
yes,
correct.
Yeah. So what kind of journey do you think Nigeria's AfriGo will be on with these other countries? And what just came to my mind now is that the Central Bank of Nigeria seems to be running, or will I say even of course, the Central Bank of Nigeria and the payment system running so fast. When you're talking about digital currency, that you're talking about Naira, for example, Nigeria is the first African country to launch that. Our payment system is also advanced, unlike some other countries. Now, with this AfriGo, do you see the Central Bank of Nigeria and the financial system having success like the Union Pay of China, the Rupee of India, and other countries?
I think we have to look at it on the long run, right, and then also focus on what are the how are the execution being driven, right? Because these are ideas that are just being launched into the market, right, and they're just picking their pace, you understand, to actually meet those kind of key areas, you understand, as the market demands for some of those areas of the gap in the market today. So I think it's something that we have to study and look for, right? But I don't see a reason like a population of over 200 million cannot have its own local cards today, right? With the sizable, and then looking at the kind of opportunities and challenges that needs to be addressed when it comes to financial space today, right? I think there has to be so much solutions we're coming to the marketplace today, right? So I'm hoping that we're going to see a very good execution, a good approach where the solution is actually solving what needs to be solved, right? And giving some cost stability in some areas of the key market. As a key driver in some key areas of transacting in the marketplace today.
Okay, Nii, can you candidly give the Central Bank of Nigeria and NIBS advice on this? Because when I take a look at China's Union Pay that started in 2002, China's Union Pay is like the second largest accepted card network, I think, in China. Accepted online as well as across ATMs across China. India also almost the same thing. What will really be your advice to the Central Bank of Nigeria and NIBS in terms of carrying this out, one? Then number two, in terms of financial inclusion. Then number three, in terms of not also crowding out space so that this can actually create jobs along the value line, along that value chain. I hope you are following my thinking this morning in terms of, yes, in terms of creation of jobs along that value chain, So what will really be your advice to the Apex Bank and its colleagues on this project?
So I think looking at it from the last question, right, I think it's more about scaling every individual in the market today, right, as an individual, right? You want to be able to give the citizen, right, a leverage of infrastructure opportunity and options in the market, right? And also looking at the when it comes to the costs of some of these things, which is edging, I guess, FX. You're saying that some of those FX, elements should actually be taken out too, right? Which has already impacts as an economic or the high appetite in demand when it comes to some areas of FX, right? Looking at financial inclusion, like I said, you can also look at it from the social impact, right? Being able to look at how I can actually take some of these solutions to see how easy or cheap it is to launch some of these products, like this kind of cards, into some key areas. For example, imagine trying to see how we can address maybe financial inclusions in farming, right? And looking at what will it entail to able to distribute this kind of cards, to the last mile that requires it at a less cost, They actually benefit the driver of the initiatives and also the user itself. So you want to be able to have like a a balance, in the market. So, but when it comes to area of advice, I think you have to look at it. I think CBN was very clear about, Central Bank was very clear about what are the key areas they are trying to address when it comes to initiating or introducing these cards. And those are the key, because you have to understand the element of what are they introducing to solve, right? So we must maintain the scope, because after we address the scope, then we can actually start scaling and looking at other areas and opportunities that this initiative will actually be able to, scale up to, like, and being able to open up to more opportunities that you can address. But I think they were precise, and then and I feel that we should monitor that we are solving the problem that these initiatives are actually introduced for.
Do you think that the competitors will be happy at this point, in the terms that that with this Afrigo there might be unfair advantage, and perhaps the cost of transaction per payment card might be a little bit lower than the competitors? Nia, I hope you understand what I'm saying in terms of a regulator, having an unfair advantage against their competitors, because we've even seen it in countries like China and India, where these cards were also launched.
Okay, so I think if you look at it, that's why you have regulatory rights. Regulatory are not meant to be biased, you understand, which you find, right? And every player today is actually being regulated, right? And I think there's a fair position where everybody has a case to present in the market today, right? And what the whole understanding now is about first, who is the real focus here, the customer, right? So it's about the customer first, even before you talk about the element of regulatory or the players or the competitor, right? Right. At the customer today, do they have the varieties of options available for them to actually do what they need to do, right? With minimal cost, right? I think that's where I will look at it from. So I cannot say, if competitors or not competitors, because I've not seen the full launch, I've not seen the full impact, right? And I think over time we'll be able to look at those areas and actually discuss further. But as of it now, I think the peculiarity is that, are we looking forward to look at what needs to be solved and how urgent when this deployment goes into the market, how urgent are we going to start seeing the result of what the purpose of why the cards are being pushed into the market.
Nee, let's talk about the big elephant in the room, or elephants rather, the elephants of infrastructure, that internet connectivity also falls on there. Also the discussion around 5G internet, and of course 5G, the internet of things. But let's take a look first at the infrastructure challenges that we're having right now, and how it is impacting even on the payment system. I made mention earlier at the beginning of the show that I tried to do a transaction for the past 4 days just to send money, and I couldn't do it. I had to log into another bank app to do that, and that took me hours to get it done. So infrastructure bottlenecks, how can that be handled with the seeming pressure that we're even having right now as a result of this Naira shortage? How can infrastructure challenges be addressed?
Okay, I think looking at it, I think, like I said, it's always about collaboration, right? So everybody has an element of layering on each other to actually create what they call the desired outcomes for the market, right? Looking at that, you have to look at improvements in every stakeholder. So infrastructure-wise, I think the value of where you have things like 5G, actually, it's about capability also, like moving from one level of capability to another level of capability and giving you more option or functionalities of what those capabilities can offer in the market today. So hoping that infrastructure providers are actually pushing towards and creating those reliability actually is going to actually help and support the market. And I think we started seeing those launch of 5G in the market today. So we're hoping to see more speed, more reliability in the market. So like you said, there's a function of a lot of elements that actually creates the kind of desire that we want. So we are hoping that collaborations, and then being able to see how those collaborations can actually have a forum, to collectively drive, some of the key challenges is going to be a good win as a whole. So yes, there seems to be some lags when it comes to area of infrastructure, but I feel that we are all seeing some of these things when it comes to the introduction of one or two things in key areas as their desire. So hopefully, I think we'll get to where we need to get to, but I think there has been some substance of progress.
All right. Nii, let's talk about security. The security of all of this that we're talking about, security of data, security of identity. I spoke with the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Data Protection Bureau last week and raised issues about data privacy and protection. Do you think that we're already there? Because there are already even breaches. I also spoke with Alliance Group chief economists some days ago, and one of the risks that they see this year is that of cyber crime and all of that. So where do you see us going in terms of security? And the final point I want to ask you is, what do you think about the future of payments in Nigeria, the advent of even virtual cards? As we know, perhaps in the next few years, and it's even already here, some financial stakeholders are already giving out virtual cards to their customers. What do you think about the emergence of all of this?
Okay, we're looking at it from the point of data and security, right? I think security is something very, very key and very important, right? And I feel for every payment solution you have there, there's a sense of security functions that exist today. But how aware do you understand the security function is another conversation, right?
Okay.
What are the layers for different channels that you have in the market today? Because you have different payment channels in the market today, right?
Okay.
And each of these channels already has security leverage that is supposed to exist on them.
Okay,
those are part of the.
Okay, Nii. Hello, Nii. Can you hear me? Nii, I must say we have to go for a live broadcast now, but thank you very much for your insights so far. We have to take a live broadcast right now, so I'm afraid we'll have to end the interview right here. Thank you very much, Nii, for joining me today on the program. Thank you very much.
Today, we speak their minds. Gentlemen, since the last few days,
Officer at Serbit has been speaking to me concerning the Naira shortage, the CBN's domestic card scheme, as well as the cashless economy. All right, let's quickly take a break. And when we return from the break, I will be taking you through the business news. Let's quickly take a break. We'll be right back.
Campaigns ahead of this month's presidential election are gradually getting to a definitive point, and despite the all too familiar challenges confronting the electoral process, it has become increasingly certain that Nigerians will get their chance to make a choice, one way or the other, on February the 25th. Labour Party's presidential standard-bearer, Peter Obi, as much as anyone, has contributed his own quota to elevating the quality of political conversation ahead of the elections, and we are delighted to welcome him to this day live. Great to have you on the program, Mr. Obi. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ruben, for inviting me.
Well, let me start by asking, how has the campaign been? I mean, what has it been like? And before now, almost every poll put you ahead of others, but I've seen just one recent one that put another person ahead of you. But how has it been?
Well, Ruben, what I've done is to concentrate more on trying to go around and visit all over Nigeria, trying to elucidate to them on the need why they should vote for me and what I offer, or what Labour Party is offering them. So that's my concentration now. Going to places where people have not been before to say to them, what you can call the ungoverned